But this is what we are doing in Grass Roots Rwanda. And I was talking to the other trustees and saying, well, what shall I say? And they say, well, just tell them what we do. And I immediately thought of, well, we work with the churches and we work with health centres and schools and individuals. And I say, really, is that actually what we do? If we were to zoom back and say, what actually do we really do in Rwanda? And then I came across this passage, which I just want to read a paragraph from you, by Immaculée Ilibagiza. And she was writing after the genocide. So she'd survived the genocide, and she was just trying to make sense of the whole thing. And she was talking to a priest about her issues. And this is what the priest said to her. And I believe this is what the priest is saying to us today. He said, being a priest is not easy in Rwanda now. People see my collar and scream. Where was God when my family was being killed? Where was Jesus when my child was being raped? Why did God abandon Rwanda? But of course, God didn't abandon our country. He was here the entire time, feeling the pain of every victim. He is still here. He is with the wounded, the lost, and the grieving. Yes, it's ugly here in Rwanda, but God's beauty is still alive here, and you will find it in love. Go back into the world and find someone to bless with that same type of love. Give it to someone who has no love at all, such as the homeless, the sick, or the orphaned. Look for the beauty of God in the eyes of a little boy or girl. Find the child whose heart has been shattered and give him or her some happiness. And I thought, you know what? That is actually what we do in Grass Roots Rwanda. And that we just share the love of God to the people there. So what I'm going to talk to you about is how we work out that love of God that we try to show to people out in Rwanda. Now, I promise you this is not death by PowerPoint. I have got 5 slides, and this is number 1. So, let's go on to the first slide. Now, this is the bishop. Some of you may recognize him. And standing on his right is the pastor. And this is in a place called Nyagizozi. And behind him is the church. And I was chatting to the pastor, and I said, so how many people rock up on a Sunday morning? And he said, well, with the chapels around, 3, 4 chapels around the back, and this one here, we will have about 900. We can expect to have about 900 people rock up each Sunday morning. And then you actually start talking to him a little bit more, and you realize he hasn't finished his theological training yet. So he leaves the parish on a Monday and comes back on a Friday, runs a parish at the weekend. And really, I just wanted to show you this, as I think it actually epitomizes their desperately needs is good, sound teaching, which is why in Grass Roots Rwanda we like to earmark about 5,000 a year, and we give that to the parish and say, this is for theological training for your ministers. Because without a good sound basis, as I say, without the actual vision, the people perish. And I always look at the church in Rwanda as being remarkably broad, but not very deep. So people will come along and they have a real faith, but they just don't have a lot of Bible knowledge, Bible understanding. So they really do need good pastors. But I say to the bishop, whenever we come here, this is never a one-way trade. Yes, we bring resources, bring some cash, we actually bring some expertise, but it's never a one-way trade, because you show us two things. You show us how to worship, and you show us how to trust. You show us how to worship because at this moment there will be services going on in Rwanda. They will have started before we started, and they will be finishing long after we have finished. So you will typically have a service 2 hours, but if it's 3 hours, then that's fine. There'll be a mat there, and all the kids will be out on the mat. There was one service I was at for 3 hours, and we have chairs with backs. They were on benches. And I looked over and I saw an old lady, 70s, 80s, and she was sitting on a bench. And she sat on that bench for 3 hours. And I'm just thinking, I couldn't do that. But they show us how to worship. And they also show us how to trust. I mean, our first song was, "May we trust in you always." But that's not the case, is it? Out in Rwanda, they do trust God. Because I was talking to a pastor, and he said, you know what? When God is all you have, you suddenly realize that God is all you need. But here, do we trust God with our whole heart? Do we trust God entirely? I think we trust the government to give us security. We trust the NHS to look after our health. We trust our pension plans to look after our long-term financial security. Out in Rwanda, well, you could say the government is secure. It's an effective dictatorship with no opposition, so in one sense that's secure. The health is, well, basic. And pension, they wouldn't even know what a pension plan was. So we say, you touch us. You teach us how to trust God. And you teach us how to worship. The next one is a place called Munazi, that we've been there for quite some time. On the left-hand side, you'll see that we take lots and lots of knitted stuff. I've got several ladies who love to knit, and I thank them when they give me yet another big bundle of knitting. Thank you. But we take these out because I hate to helicopter into a place, talk to the ministers and talk to there and have a bite to eat and then shoot off again. But actually, if you bring gifts and we just lay them all out on the table and they can come and we can talk to them, and it is a way that we can open conversations with just everyday people. This is a church where there's about 400 people. 400 people actually rock up each day. And I chose this church just to demonstrate church growth. 15 years ago, there was no Christian presence here. There was no Christian presence. There wasn't a church. There was nothing. It was seen as bandit country, really. Until the church started, a few people went along, sang a few songs, and started a little church. And in 15 years, it's gone from 0 to 400. And actually, the bishop says, well, if you want to be your own independent parish, you really need 500 people. 500 people rocking up is a good size. It's a good starter parish. So they're out recruiting for another 100. But there are many churches here who have not yet hit 400, and we've been at it for almost 2,000 years. And I was talking to someone and I said, why? Why do you get so much church growth? Because you listen to what the pastors are saying, and it's the same message as what's being preached here. And he says, well, the thing is, you see, people understand that you are 3 parts. I mean, there's 3 parts to us all here. There's the physical. This slightly sort of podgy person here is my physical. And then there is my soul, my brain, my memories, my intellect, my ambitions, my attitudes. But there's also the spirit part of me, which is inhabited by the Spirit of God. And he says, when we talk to people out in Rwanda, they understand that. Even back in the days of the witch doctor, they understand that you had a spirit. But of course you've got a spirit. So when we talk to them about Jesus Christ, the Son of God, can actually come into your life and inhabit the spirit part of you, well, they get it. They understand what you're talking about. But I reckon that if you go outside and you stop 100 people and say, do you have a spirit that will live on after you have died? They'll say, a great majority will say, well, no. When you're dead, you're dead. That's it. So therefore, it's really difficult to engage with people if they don't understand that they are 3 parts to you, not just 2. The next one, just before I actually leave that, the little guy on the left there, we took lots of knitted stuff, and that's a little sort of baby tunic, but he was after a hat. So he probably looked at it and said, hey, a hat with vent holes. That's going to be really handy during the hot weather, so good for him. We're also involved in health. So you will see, that's not very good, there's a tree down on the bottom right-hand side. There's a tree just in the frame, and that is an avocado tree. And I didn't realize that a full-grown avocado tree can produce 1,000 fruits a year. So when we talk to them and we say, yeah, well, we will pay £1 or so for an avocado, they just fall about laughing. You know, they just pick them off the trees for nothing. But over on the left-hand side, that's a birthing table. And it's seen quite a few births, that table. And at Hanukkah, they have about 40 births a month. So that table is well used. You can see that the vinyl part of it is beginning to crack. And when you lift up the bottom of it, the actual frame itself is rusting away. There was an incubator there. We said, well, it's good that you've got the incubator for premature births. They said, yes, it's good it's there. It's a pity it's not working. So we sent over £10,000. And they said, yeah, we've got a couple of new birthing tables, got a microscope, we've got some bits and pieces here. And it's just great to actually show the love of God to the people. So it's not just say, be blessed and walk away. It's actually, we can bless you by sharing some of our resources with you. Is he okay? All right, okay. Right. Top right on that picture, you will see a group of women, some of them with young babies or young children. And their spokesman is the girl standing. And they were saying, yes, this little group have all been subject to sexual abuse. And we are looking for ways that we can be a little bit more independent. Because in Rwanda, it's still a society where marriage is the norm. So if some good-looking guy comes up and gives you promises, then maybe you respond, or the man offers, or maybe the man just takes. So we were really pleased to send over 6,000. And for that, they got in some teachers. They showed them how to sew, got them some sewing machines, and just so that they have got an element of independence. I just want to pause for a second and say, we love to take people out to Rwanda. You know about Rwanda intellectually, but you don't know about Rwanda in your heart. You haven't met the people. You haven't had some hot, sweet African tea with them. And everyone's first questions is, if I go, what will I do? Here in the West, we are obsessed with doing things. And I say, can you love? And if the answer is, well, yes, I can, I say, you're qualified. You come over and just share some of God's love with people here. I was talking to a pastor, we were walking down the road, and he said, do you know what? I don't know why you come here. You leave your comfortable life in the West, you come over to Rwanda and you spend a few weeks roughing it with us. So I don't know why you come, but I'm very glad that you do, because it reminds us that we are not forgotten. And I think if we can just go, be more be rather than do, and just love people, then you are just sharing the love of God. I would be missing if I didn't give you the last slide showing our needs. There's a pound sign there, and I would be lacking in my duty if I didn't say we can always do with some more cash. You need the wisdom of Solomon because the needs always vastly outweigh the money that we have. So after prayerful consideration, we will distribute the cash, but we can always do with some more. Next little thing is a person praying. And we always need to be covered in prayer. In fact, one of our trustees is an old lady. She's in her 80s. She can never come out to Rwanda. She's just not fit enough. So she says, well, I want to help, but I don't know what I can do. And I said, you are the trustee in charge of prayer. So at our trustee meetings, I've given her the authority that, at any time, you just say, just stop the meeting. We just need to pray about this. Don't fill it, don't wait until the end of the meeting and have 3 or 4 things. No, let's just pray about that now. We can always do with some more prayer. The top right is a set of accounting books. Our treasurer has been treasurer for 13 years and would really, really like to step back. So if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, I would love to hear from you. All of our accounts are held in Excel, and we obviously do the internet banking. So if God is prompting you about that this morning, please don't be shy. The bottom right is Board of Trustees. We have had 2 trustees resign for family reasons. And Jim and Judy are well into their 70s, and they would both like to retire. So that will leave me, Greg, Paul, our praying trustee, and a trustee who looks after all of the admin. Again, pray about that. Would you like to become a trustee? Pray about that. You must be prepared to come out to Rwanda. And I can't promise what will happen, but that's part of the joy of being a small trust. Whenever you go out to the Rwanda, I say, I don't know what will happen. Whatever happens, just roll with it. And the bottom left is social media. I'm absolutely convinced that we need a better presence in social media. And if you look at myself and Greg and Paul, let's just say we are all of a certain age. We do lack a certain amount of diversity on our trustee board, so a little bit more diversity would be absolutely delightful. But we do need a better presence on the internet. So we have a Facebook page, which we try to keep up to date. We have our website, which is professionally maintained. I've just started thinking that we do need to have our YouTube channel. But if there is anyone who says, yeah, I'm a whiz on that, you'll probably be of a younger age, and I fully accept that. But it would be good to have someone who can just say, yes, I can look after your social media for you. So that's all I really want to say today. All that I can re-emphasize is that if God is speaking to you, if God has been prompting you about anything that I've said today, please don't leave the building until either speaking to myself, Greg, or Paul about it. Just talk to us just to find out a bit more. So, thank you. That's all I've got to say. And can we just finish in a very short word of prayer? Father, we just want to thank you for Rwanda. We pray that you will bless Rwanda and the people there who just love you and spend their time singing and dancing. Forgive us, Lord, for our lukewarmness at times. And we just pray that we will realize that it is your worldwide church. Amen.